Hey, welcome back to Rust Sorter Garage and the $5,000 budget. Yeah, 56 Chevy pickup. Yep, $5,000 budget. That's all I'm going to spend. So, let's do something else. All right, so with the exhaust done, now I can get the rear shocks done. I don't know if I'm going to get it done today because there's too many other things going on at the same time, but I can get started. So, I bought a pair of rear shocks, and they're Monroe's. That's the part number. The only reason I bought these is because I found a parts list from the 41 Cadillac I built, and I used these. So I said, oh, probably a good range for length. But what I didn't realize is this shock has the sleeves in the bushings on both sides, which is not what I planned on having, because I planned on using a mount like this, kind of similar to what the truck had for factory. So I think I'm going to press out at least the top one. Hopefully it comes out reasonably, because they are going to be glued in there. But I'll put a socket on one side and give it a shot to press it out. I don't want to heat it up and melt the glue if I can avoid it, just because I don't want to burn the bushing. And then on the bottom, could be the same way. I could bolt that style on and it would work. But first, let me even see if this is going to work. All right. Well, that was a failure. I pressed out the sleeve, and the bushing is not as big as I thought it was. That's not going to fit. So I can either change that bushing or press the sleeve back in and save these for another project sometime. But because I'm a hoarder, I just went and looked, and here's a pair of brand new shocks. Yep, I'm that guy at the swap meet who buys shocks. I'll have to look up the part number to see what these fit. It's a 2701-80894. I have no idea what the application is. And they're a little longer than this. But I might be able to make these work instead. Now, these have a bottom bushing that I could swap into these other shocks if I wanted. And where's my piece here I just had? And this actually does fit that. That's the right size for that. You got to knock it on, which is tight, which is good. So that would work for the bottom. And then the top would just be a stud, which will give it movement. So that may work out even better. Let me measure these, compress them, and we'll see what that does. Okay, after some messing around, I am going to make these work. They may be Toyota rear shocks for a Toyota RAV4. I have to double check that number. That seems to pop up when I put in 80894, but I have to confirm that. But either way, I've got some metal brackets here that are heavy steel. Looks like at least 1/4 inch. I'll weld those to the rear cross member, and then make brackets for the bottom. That should work. All right, so here's where I'm going to mount my first bracket, and then I'll mirror image it on the other side. Now, I decided to keep this simple and get it done. I could overthink this forever, but bottom line is the only parameters I'm worried about are can't stick up too high that it would be in the way of the bed floor. That's okay. I need the shock to be about mid-travel at ride height. I don't want the bottom of the shock so low that it's below the rim edge, which is the scrub line. So if you had a flat tire, you don't want your shock digging into the ground. And so your lower shock should be above, or say lower shock mount should be above the scrub line, which is the bottom of the rim. And other than that, that's about it. So as long as I have it, again, about mid-travel at ride height, and my mounts are safe, strong, and nothing's going to hit anything, that should work. So I'm going to weld that one in, and then weld the other one on the other side, same way. There we go. Upper mounts. Nothing special, but they will not move. So that's, yeah, guess that's not much to say about that, except that those are upper mounts. Keep it simple, stupid. All right, with the upper mounts welded in, I have a mark on my shock. This is a bit of a compromise. So normally I would want to be, I'll say, at mid-stroke for the shock at ride height, so I have equal amount of compression and extension available. However, because I'm using a swap meet shock that I have in my hand, and I did not spec it and did not measure anything, this shock has about 8 inches of total travel. Now, right now, I am about 5.5 inches. The rear axle is about 5.5 inches below the frame rail. So at 5.5, it would hit. That's without a bump stop. I haven't added one yet. And it's going to come down a little bit when the bed gets put on. So maybe it'll be down around 5 inches. So I am going to compromise. I am going to, instead of having this 8-inch travel shock have 4 inches each way, I'm going to give it 5 inches of compression, 3 of extension. Because I don't think I'm going to jump the truck. So most of the time, it's going to be under compression and then come back to ride height. It will, of course, come up if you go over bumps and stuff, but 3 inches is quite a bit. So I'm going to split it. I'll make it 5 inches compression, 3 inches extension, and that'll be where I end up mounting my lower mount. So I marked this here. So that's 3 inches down from there. So if the shock is here when it's mounted in the truck at ride height, I have a full 5 inches before it bottoms out. So that's the plan. If it doesn't work out, I'll have to go back to the shock book and find one with the same mounting ends, which will be easy enough to do, with maybe a little more length. But we'll figure that out at the time. I think this will do just fine. I don't plan on Dukes of Hazzard with the truck. No jumping, so this will work. But that'll be when we come back, because I'm done for the day. I got other things I got to do. So we'll come back later and do the lower mounts. All right, it is many days later. Went to the Hershey, PA swap meet, huge swap meet, trying to find the last few things I need for this truck. You didn't see the truck. I was trying to find a rear bumper. Was struck out, only found one. Guy wanted as much money as new, so that wasn't going to work. And I needed steps for the bed because mine are missing. Struck out. But I did find a bunch of other stuff that I don't need that I bought anyway. So let's finish up the rear shock mounts, and then I got to move on to something else. So what I've done here is I just put a piece of 6x6 across the frame and some ratchet straps, and I just basically just sucked up the rear axle closer to the frame. I'm about 4.5 inches now below the frame rail, and the rear shackles are pretty much straight up. So I'm just going to guess, that's bringing it down about an inch or so. I'm going to guess ride height might be somewhere around there. But what I'm going to do is, with that all clamped down like that, now I can make my lower mounts. I'll just set it up so I'll measure again. But say I have 4 inches till I hit the frame rail. I'll make sure I have at least 4.5 inches of compression on the shock, so the bump stops that I haven't installed yet would get hit before the shock would bottom out and break things. So let's get in the air and see what it looks like. All right, so here's where we are. And looking at this may work out pretty good. So right now my axle is 4 inches below the frame before it would bottom out. So this bottom line here is where the shock is completely compressed. So that mark there. So I want, if I've got 4 inches till I hit, I'm going to set this at 4.5 inches compression. So I have a 1/2 inch leeway. So if I did somehow bottom out the suspension, it would hit the bump stop, which is not there yet, and before it hit the shock. So that's this mark. So I measured up from here to there. That's 4.5 inches. So that means if I put this here and mount the shock to the axle, I've got 4.5 inches before it would bottom out, and that's fine. And looking at this is looking like the way this is lining up. I think all I'm going to have to do is put a flat piece of steel straight off of the existing S10 spring mount and pick up that point. And I may be able to even take out the original shock mount here, knock it out, and move it to the other side and have it facing out the back. I don't know if you can see what I'm talking about here. But with this shock up there where it's going to be, it's looking like this hole is pretty well lined up with the front. Get that there so you can see it with the front of this. So if I just drop this down, I should be able to pick that up. It might be easier to see once it's done, but it looks like it's going to work out pretty well. And if I can reuse these, hey, then it's free. All right, I'm going to see if I can get that shock stud out of there and be able to reuse it. Otherwise, I gotta just cut them off. I'm gonna try heating up around it a little bit. See if it'll let go. I don't want to beat on it too hard because I got the thing on the lift. I think it is moving. It is. Make sure I'm not destroying the nut. All right, that's working. Get that to let go. Cool, I might be able to even reuse that. All right, so we got the studs out of the S10 brackets there, but I'm not gonna be able to reuse them because these are designed to go into a sleeve. There's no sleeve on these shocks, and rather than get into changing bushings, I'll just save these for another project. So I have these, which had bought from Speedway, and they'll work great. And actually, they're made for these. It turns out, because these are 1982 to 2002 F-body rear shocks. So Camaro or Firebird, very common. And it took a little bit to figure that out based on cross-referencing part numbers, but I found out. So the way that's going to work is this is just going to go right into the bushing there. And we have our spacer. And then this will go up like that. And I can just put a flat piece of steel straight off the bottom of this mount and pick that up. It's going to work perfect. So let me cut some steel, make it, and show you what it looks like. All right, there we go. Just flat steel welded straight down off the original pad, around the corner a little bit, and bolted up just like it would be on a Camaro. So that works out good. We're right at our line there, so we know that got enough travel for compression. Extension will still come down a few inches, which is fine. And yeah, should be good to go. Now I just got to do the other side. And here also you can see that the shock is going straight up and down. It's not crooked. So when suspension goes up and down, the shock won't be binding up. And then as we talked about before with the scrub line, you can see the bottom of the rim is well below the shock mount. So if we blow a tire, that doesn't get dug into the ground. So that's gonna be good. So we'll get the other side done. I'll show you the bracket. So here's the high-tech piece of steel I'm using. That'll weld onto the bottom like that. And then I'll just line the shock up with it at the correct compressed height, because we marked them with the tape, same as that one. Mark the hole, drill the hole, and that's all there is to it. Second mount in. Oh good, we're lined up. So that's it for lower shock mounts. If you want to buy these things from Speedway, this is the part number for that steel mount bolt that I use there. But I think if you buy new shocks for a 82 to 02 Camaro, they come with them. I got those at a swap meet, so they didn't come with the bolts. So that's why I didn't know what they were. If I saw the bolts, I would have recognized them. That's the same shock I put on the back of the 55 Turbo Buick. So I think that is it for the rear suspension back here. All that'll be left will be set my pinion angle, weld the purchase, and we'll be finished back here. All right, that will be it for rear shocks. They're back there somewhere. Can't see them, but they're there. Mounts are done, looks good. I'm gonna leave the straps on there and the suspension compressed, because I think that's a pretty good representation of where it will be when I put the bed on, as far as level and ride height. So that way I can set my pinion angle. So I'm rolling the dice a little bit, but you know, doing it now before I put the bed on, but I think I'm gonna be really close enough. So I'm gonna get the axle centered up. I think it's pretty much there. Check the pinion angle, and we'll do that on another video. But that will be it for this one. I've got to get on to something else. Let's just update the budget, and we'll be all set. All right, let's update the budget. Really not a lot to do here, because both the upper and lower mounts were made out of scrap. They didn't cost me anything, and I don't think they would cost you anything either if you went and found some. I mean, they're not really, it's really nothing. There is a shock cost adjustment. Originally, I put down $42 for the rear shocks because I bought the new ones. Didn't use them. We'll use them on another build for sure. But I know I got those at a swap meet. There's no way I paid more than $10 for a pair. That's all I'll pay, because it just doesn't make sense to buy shocks for more money than that. Obviously, you test them, make sure they're good, and they're not just dead, but not going to pay more than $10 for a pair. So I took $32 off the cost and out of my budget. So that would bring the truck value down to $52.04, and out of pocket $20.34. And then the actual shock bolts for the lower mounts, I had to buy those new. I bought 4 of them from Speedway. They were $22 for 4, so I wrote $11 for a pair, and 2 more will be used in the future, I'm sure. That brings the truck value to $52.15, and out of pocket $2,045. So the truck build is doing good. We're moving right along. I have one more shot to get a rear bumper and bed steps. I've got a last swap meet of the season coming up this Sunday. Fingers crossed. It's usually a very good show, and I actually have a chance of finding them there. I thought I would have found that stuff at Hershey. I was pretty surprised not to, but didn't. But I found some stuff I didn't expect to find. I bought some brand new in the box universal 3-inch exhaust systems, which will be good for a future turbo build. $50 a box, brand new. So those are about $180 a piece new usually. That was a good deal. I found a pair of brand new eBay LS headers for 50 bucks. That wasn't expected. Don't expect to find LS stuff at Hershey, that's for sure. And I bought some other miscellaneous stuff that you'll see on this truck and on other builds in the future. So that'll be it for this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following along. Thank you for subscribing. As usual, I really appreciate it. We will see you on the next one. Later.